In this video, we'll do a few more examples of matrix multiplication. So like looking at the third example from the packet A times B, notice that what I said about the rules of matrix multiplication is I'm always taking the rows of the first times the column of the second. But notice if I'm trying to do A times B, the problem here is that in matrix A, there's 2 columns, so I have 2 elements. But in matrix B, there's 3 rows, which gives me 3 elements. And when I'm trying to multiply the first row into the first column, I get a mismatch of numbers. And as I'm trying to do this inner product, the question becomes, well, what do I actually multiply? And in such situations, the matrix multiplication is just undefined or not allowed. Basically, this is not allowed to happen because it's a dimensional mismatch. But basically, as I said before, not all matrices can be multiplied by one another. And as we did the examples for AC and BD, those did work. If we were to invert those, it would not work. So let's look at a following example. Let's say we were trying to take matrix A times matrix B here. To see if this is going to be allowed, we first need to check, well, how many rows, or really how many columns are in the first and how many rows are in the second. But what I do is I think about circling it. And in this case, they both have 2 elements, so this should be fine. And then what I like to do is you could answer the question, well, what is the dimensions of my answer? But I prefer to just start working, and the dimensions of my answer should become apparent after all is said and done. But in this case, I have 2 columns and 3 rows. That should be the dimensions of my answer. But basically, 1 times -1 is -1, and 3 times 0 is 0. Let me go ahead and erase those circles. And I'll circle it as I go. 1, 3 gives me -1 plus 0. Then 1, 3 into 5, 4 would be 5 plus 12, which is 17. And then 1, 3 into 2, 7 would leave me with 2 plus 21, which is 23. Then I need to move into the second row into each column. So second into first would be -1 times -1 is 1. Then -1 times 5 is -5 and 0. It's -5. And the second being 0 makes this a lot easier. -1 times 2 is -2 and 0. -2. And the dimensions of my answer will be 2 by 3. But as I said, you can always tell before doing anything what's going to be the dimensionality of your answer based on, well, first, does it match the number of columns to rows? And then the remaining answer will have, well, how many rows did you have and how many columns did you have? That will be the dimensions of your answer in each case.